Next up we have Lee Johnson. He runs his own business now. It's quite a new venture for him. He's offered to share with us a little bit around digital badges. So it came up yesterday, the digital recording of training and how maybe that might be able to be used within Passport. So yeah, it'd be good to hear a bit more around how these work. So I'll hand over to Lee just now to share with us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you, Emma, for the invitation. It's obviously disappointing that we're not able to meet face to face, but yeah, it's still great to be here all the same. Now, a tough act to follow, such a passionate presentation from Penny, so bear with me. I might have some similar issues sharing my screen. So to get started, what would be really helpful from my perspective would be if we can sort of gauge the knowledge within the room regarding digital badges. So in the chat, if you can drop a number from 0 to 10 in terms of your knowledge, 0 being you don't have any knowledge regarding digital badges, 10 being you're an expert and really you probably shouldn't be sitting in this session. So that would be really helpful. Okay, so a lot of zeros coming in, a few 6s, 7s, excellent. Grand. So quite a varied and mixed response there. Okay, most down in the 0 actually, but a few 5s, 6s. Excellent. So for those of you that are scoring at the higher end, please, in the chat towards the end, feel free to drop any of your suggestions, any of your comments, your stories, etc. Anything that will be of benefit to obviously the wider group. So that would be helpful. Okay, grand. Let me try and share my presentation with you. Okay, folks, can you see the presentation on your screen? Excellent. Okay, so an introduction to digital badges then. Let me introduce myself. So my name is Lee Johnston. As Emma mentioned, I've recently set up a company called Slangeva Learning. And for our English colleagues that may be joining the call today, I did choose the sort of more phonetic spelling of Slangeva. I set up the company really in response to sort of the COVID pandemic, to aid organisations in navigating sort of training and education in this sort of COVID and hopefully post-COVID world. It's sad to see that we still see within education, charlatans espousing things like learning styles, going back to, oh, I'm a visual learner, I'm an auditory learner, these sorts of things. So yeah, that was part of the reason in founding the company. You can see some of my contact details there. Feel free to get in touch and connect via social media. That would be always helpful to grow our networks, etc. And similarly, if you've got any questions, you can send an email as well. A bit about my background. Initially, I trained to be a teacher. My background is in education, and after that, moved into health and social care, and predominantly in the sort of training side of health and social care. That's a bit about me. So the agenda for the session then, we've obviously went through our introduction. Next, we're going to be considering what are digital badges, then why we should use them, how we might use them, and then some next steps for digital badges and your development. And there will be an opportunity for those of you that are brand new to digital badges to earn a badge for yourself for attending the conference. So you'll be asked 2 questions, submit some evidence, and then you can earn your first badge, and you can let us know how you feel about that in the process. So in terms of what are digital badges then, this image from a Credible I feel is quite helpful in sort of setting the context then. So first of all, if we think about the pink circle sphere there, our physical credentials that we're sort of most of us are more common with, are used to. Our passports, our driving license, etc., an ID badge, all of these are our physical credentials. Digital credentials, these are just obviously digital versions of these physical credentials. yesterday, and I think BBC had picked up that in Scotland we're looking at a COVID sort of passport for going on holiday, and the idea is I think that this will be for most people a digital credential. Yeah. When we consider in relation to recognition, then in terms of our learning, from a physical perspective, obviously that would be our training certificates, and from a digital perspective, that could be a digital certificate that you're issued at the end of, maybe an e-learning course, upon completion, that type of thing. And digital badges sit within that as well, so they're part of digital credentials. So hopefully that gives a bit of context into what digital badges are. Specifically within digital badges, then we're going to be looking at open badges and the standard that is part of open badges. So a brief history then of open badges. These were first created back in 2011. So initially the Peer-to-Peer University and the Mozilla Foundation co-authored a paper, an open badge framework. Later that year, Mozilla then developed the technical standard for open badges, and by 2012, version 1.0 was launched. By 2013, you can see that over 1,450 organisations were involved in issuing open badges. And by 2014, a Badge Alliance was formed, so organisations that were looking to promote and use badges came together. In 2016, then there was quite a massive change. So Mozilla, who'd sort of set up the standard, then transferred that stewardship to IMS Global, and since then there's been some slight tension regarding their stewardship and potential question marks about alternative standards for badges, etc. Alternative organisations that should take ownership and stewardship of the badge standard. And that brings us to 2021, which obviously the question that's been asked is, do badges still have a place in 2021 and beyond? So that's a brief history of the open badge standard. Fundamentally, we can break badges down into two elements, or open badges down into two elements. So there's the badges themselves, and similar to thinking about how badges are earned in the Scouts and similar organisations, they're used to recognise obviously achievement, skills, and so on and so forth. So that's the key element, the badge itself, and being able to sort of share that. And then the other element is a backpack. So you need a backpack to store these badges, these digital badges. Backpacks, there's various organisations where you can sign up for a backpack, a digital backpack to store your badges, and they're absolutely free. And you can earn badges from a variety of sources and bring it back into that one backpack that you've set up due to the open nature of the standard within badges, or open badges. So this image, I absolutely love this image because it really sort of highlights that behind the visual, the graphic of the badge, the key thing is the data behind it and within it. So if we peel back the layers, then you can see the example of the badge that I've created for the conference that we're in attendance. So let's look at some of the key elements. The graphic itself, so you can see the image that I've created, the title, the issuing details. So these are all included as part of the badge itself. So which organisation issued the badge, the date when it expires, the earner's name. The criteria and the description of the badge. So what is the purpose of the badge? The ability to verify, and this is a key element of this open badge standard and any digital credential, as you can well appreciate. There's no point in not having that ability, because then we could just say, yep, I've earned some sort of credential from Harvard University or Oxbridge or something. I just copy the image off their website, that type of thing. So the key thing is these need to be verifiable. So badges, as part of the standard, have that included. You can check, you can verify a badge, so it pops up there. Has it been checked? The image, the criteria, the issuer, etc. Yeah. Next key element is the criteria. So what was involved in earning that badge? What did the individual need to do to be able to earn this credential? And then finally, the evidence itself that can be attached. So some badges may be issued just for attendance purposes, in which case you don't need to include any evidence. But moving forward, I think that the evidence is the key for badges, to move away from sort of handing them out like sweeties, so to speak. To give them value, the evidence is the key thing. So being able to attach a variety of different sources. It can be a text document, um, a voice memo, for example, or video. So potentially could play a big part in relation to manual handling there. We've got the theory element from Module A of the passport scheme, could easily be recorded in terms of evidence, but also the physical components, the physical training. So we could capture somebody's competence in particular, in relation to a particular technique, a particular manoeuvre, sit to stand, so on and so forth. We could capture the staff member being involved in that. Obviously, we need to be mindful of data protection and privacy and so on and so forth, because the evidence goes with the badge. So if that delegate, that earner decides to share their badge, that evidence goes with them. That would go into social media, so anybody that clicks on that badge can see, yeah, can see the criteria they had to meet. Excellent. Oh, there's the evidence. So that's a bit about what are digital badges. Now let's think why we might use them. So this was a quote. Sorry, I didn't notice the participant's name, and obviously in terms of I didn't have the chance to ask them if they were okay with this being shared, so I've anonymised it anyway. But this is an interesting quote from yesterday's session that Sarah delivered regarding an update in the passport scheme. It would help if organisations standardised the paperwork they gave staff. We had people just given the certificate of attendance with the Scottish Manual Handling Passport mentioned on it, but no content or information on the modules covered, etc. So I think that's a good connection there, going from the evidence that can be built into a badge. It certainly addresses this issue that a participant is already highlighted. So what are some of the drivers that we're seeing behind badges and micro-credentials as a whole? Well, one of the first drivers is the cost. So there's an increase in cost of education. To combat that, a lot of organisations, a lot of education providers are looking to break down traditional degrees and so on and so forth into smaller chunks to make it more affordable to learners. So cost is a big factor. The need to upskill, so a lot of reports being done in skills and the lack of skills within the workplace. So they need to upskill in that so-called VUCA world, so volatile world, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. So the need to upskill is another driving factor. Skills, realise the spelling mistake there. The emphasis on skills over degrees. I don't know if you know, if this is the case in organisations, etc., within which you operate, if you're seeing a general trend towards this, but particularly in America, the White House released a statement saying they were looking for skills over solely degrees, etc. Google, another example, Elon Musk, etc. They've all come out with statements regarding emphasising skills over degrees. So that's another big trend that we're seeing for micro-credentials, as a subset of micro-credentials, digital badges. And then obviously the digitisation that we're seeing and the impact that that's having on jobs and will continue to have. Obviously over the pandemic, we've all been probably involved in that digitisation, that change in our approach, and obviously the conference today and yesterday had to respond to that. Okay, so I feel that I've been talking for quite a bit now. What I would like to do is get some of your thoughts from what I've said so far regarding the benefits of open badges. So if we consider the earner, the learner, the employee, first of all, so if you pop yourself into that position of being the earner of a badge, what benefits do you think it would have to you? So if you could drop some comments into the chat, and I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll bring up the chat, that would be easier. Excellent. So I can see being easy to share with others. So yeah, not having to find your certificate. People like a badge, definitely. They sort of collect them all, you know, like the Pokemon cards and things from years. Oh, that's still about. CPD evidence, good in your CV. Excellent points here. Evidence for registration, reaccreditation for professional bodies. It's a recognised achievement. Oh, I like that one. That's an interesting point from Chris there. So, if you were using the video function in terms of the evidence, it could also act as an aid memoir for the individual to recover that skill, etc. Excellent. Yeah, induction evidence through CPD. Grand. So a lot of good points there, folks, regarding the benefits to the earner. You've done the work for me there. Let me jump back. I've popped in just a few points here. So yeah, they can demonstrate the skills and the accomplishments for that individual. It allows them to personalise their own learning journey, so earning badges from different sources, etc. So yeah, excellent points there, folks. Excellent. Well done. Now, if we jump to the employer, can you now think about benefits from an employer perspective? Assurance reporting, excellent, Alex. Transferable throughout organisations, definitely. Again, the validity being really important. Keep staff training as electronic. Validated again. Definitely. Get rid of paperwork. So a few comments regarding electronic and getting rid of paperwork. Consistency of training and the proof. Excellent. Again, some great points there that the group have made. Other points to consider that I don't think have come up at this stage, allows you to gauge and retain talent. So if your employees are earning different badges, etc., you can then gauge where is there a skill gap within your team or organisation. You can also use badges as a way to obviously create career pathways for individuals. Also thinking about addressing that skill balance. And finally, marketability. So, as people are sharing badges, it's the organisation's name and things that's attached to it. So, it can raise awareness for your organisation as well. Oh, I jumped ahead there. Oh well. Thought I had another slide in there before it moved to educators. So, from an education perspective or a training provider's perspective, some of the things to consider there are obviously it's part of sort of move towards digital learning, can allow you to address new business models, again going back to that marketing and so on and so forth, so it raises awareness of your brand. Some of the points that have already been made in the chat apply for that as well in terms of the validity and so on and so forth. So great to see that within the chat there's already a lot of sort of thoughts about how digital badges and open badges potentially could be used. Blended learning programs, Karen, yeah, definitely. Grand. So a brief value proposition, again, just taking some of the points that I thought about last night when I was going through this presentation again. So badges allow the recognition of learning, allows learning to be incentivised, gather evidence, marketing, learning pathways. So yeah, a lot of the things that we really mentioned there, folks. The connection to national occupation standards, and I think this is where badges again can really come into their own when they are connected to a specific framework or standards, as opposed to, as I mentioned earlier, being issued like sweeties, and then they lose that value. So yeah. Okay, how might we use digital badges then? So already a few ideas within the chat there. I think fundamentally we need to consider the question, pedagogy or is it panicology? So are we wanting to use badges for the right reasons, or is it a knee-jerk response to the pandemic and moving towards digital? So I think fundamentally any decision, if you are going to use badges, needs to be based or in terms of the design of your courses, etc., should be in sound educational theory, as opposed to it's just a fancy new tool, etc. shiny new thing that people can often get sort of swept up in. Badges themselves shouldn't be the idea. It's just they can help enable some of the things that we've discussed over the past 2 days. Okay, so some points to consider then are how might we go about then using badges, which takes us to choosing a badging system. So three key elements here to consider. You can go about and create your own bespoke badging system using the open standards that the documentation and things is available online. Obviously, the downside to that is the cost in terms of reaching out to a developer, the upfront cost there. But ultimately, that would be built to suit you and your organisation. So that can be an option. Next, there's the modular considerations. So, for example, if you already have a site, or a website, etc., that's built on WordPress, for example, then you could have add-ons such as the Badge OS plugin that can be brought in. If your organisations use Microsoft Teams, for example, Credible, I believe, or is it Badger, I think actually, they have a add-on for Microsoft Teams where badges can be issued through Microsoft Teams. And then finally, your off-the-peg system as well. So these are systems like Open Badge Factory, Credible, where less technical knowledge is required. It's they've set up the system, they've set up all of the documentation, and so it can be great for branching out, exploring badges in the first instance. Downside can be costs can increase quite rapidly the more badges that you issue, and there tends to be less customization options available from an off-the-peg system. Yeah. Next element is then think about the badge itself. So if you are going to design a badge, how might you go about doing it? Digital Me have created this sort of canvas here, which I think is just a great way that it covers the key elements to consider for your badge design. So the criteria, what behaviours are you looking to encourage, the evidence you want to attach, what is that value proposition if you are having to justify. Endorsers, again, a big thing. So within the badge system, organisations can endorse other organisations. So, for example, Scottish Manual Handling Forum could endorse organisations that are registered with them, for example, for the passport scheme. So all of that can be part of the badging system. Channels, what channels are you looking to sort of share and utilise your badges? Who awards it? So setting up, there needs to be that consideration about are badges issued automatically? Are badges part of if they're evidence-based, do you want it to be peer assessed, for example, in the first instance, or does it go to specific people within your team to sort of validate that evidence that's attached? Are you building badges as part of a pathway system, which we'll talk about next? So here's just an example I've threw together. Obviously, these aren't real badges, but if we were to use the manual handling passport scheme as an example, for example, we could take Module A, the theory element, and within that, the criteria for the badge would be obviously your learning outcomes, etc. Your evidence could then be the form that includes the trainer comments, the trainee signature, etc. You could have some reflective piece as well as part of that evidence, and that could be Module A, and there would be a badge specific to Module A of the passport scheme. You would then build that pathway, including the other modules. What evidence would you expect for B, C, etc., so on and so forth. And then ultimately, once a earner has got all of those badges, they can get a penultimate badge there, which would evidence that they've achieved all of that. So that would be earned on completion of the previous steps. So that could be a way that you might use badges in relation to the passport scheme. Okay, can you just look at a question there? Can you add, sorry, popped up a wee second. Can you add to the badge once it has been issued for an annual update or competency assessment? So that a great question there, Susan. So can you add to the badge once it's been issued? Well, the way round about that, you couldn't then go back and add to it. You would then create a badge for your annual update, for example, or your a competency assessment. So yeah, the other thing you could do is obviously put your expiration date, so the badge would expire if we're saying, you know, mandatory refresher, if it's 12 or 24 months, it would expire at that point, and then obviously they would need to re-earn that badge. So that's an option as well. But no, you can't go back in and add to them once they've been issued. Okay, great question. So next steps then to consider, if you're interested in learning more about open badges, the SSSC, the Scottish Social Services Council, have been doing amazing work regarding digital badges, open badges. It just was on their website. So they've awarded over 31,000 badges since they've created their badging system. So over 31,000 badges issued, amazing. There's 523 badges available within their system. And due to the time commitment it was taken for their learning and development team to assess each individual badge and then award it, they've moved to a peer assessment model. So understanding is there'd be the need for 2 peers to look at that evidence and then approve it before the badge would be issued. So have a look at the SSSC's website, great information in badges. Next, the Learning Fractal, it's actually an archive of newsletters, mostly relating to digital badges. The newsletter itself actually just stopped in March 2021, but a lot of great information within there. So you can have a look there, and that's by the team, trying to remember the members, but Duke Belshaw and Brian Mathers and things like that, they're behind that. So a lot of great information regarding digital badges from the Learning Fractal. And then finally, Don Present. He's a massive advocate and user of badges. A lot of his stuff online. Visit his blog if you're interested in learning more. I did mention that you would have the opportunity to earn a badge yourself. So if this is the first time that you've done one, if you visit the web address there, so it's langevarlearning.co.uk/SMHF. Once you get to there, there'll be a button to asking you to claim your badge. You will then be asked 2 questions, so you can type in your answers there, and then that will ping along for verification. Once that's been approved, you'll then receive an email, and that email will contain your badge within it. And remember, your evidence is part of that. From there, you can decide what you want to do with that, whether you want to set up it'll include an easy link to set up a backpack if you've never done that before, and you can store it there. Easy options, whether you want your badge to be visible, if you want to just keep it to yourself. All of that is part of the easy process. It really does just talk you through it in the email. Once you do have your badge, I would encourage you though to share it, get the word out about badges. You can add them to your social media platforms. Some of your learning management systems, etc., include that functionality, but get them out there, pop them in LinkedIn. It helps obviously raise awareness for the Scottish Manual Handling Forum, but also we would include your evidence again there, so you can add that under your LinkedIn profile. And if so, coming towards the end of the presentation, if I've still not convinced you then that badges are the way forward, you still can print it. So within the option in the backpack, you can go into download, and it's a PDF document, and there's an example. It prints it off. So for those of you that like that digital copy, that physical copy, there's still that option there for you. Okay. So as a reminder, get onto the link, earn your badge. If you need any assistance, please drop me an email, just at hello@langevarlearning.co.uk. I will stick around in the chat afterwards as well for the next few sessions. So if anything crops up, please let me know. I would encourage you, obviously, I appreciate there's a lot of sessions that you've been going through, but I would encourage you to reflect on 2 key points from this session. So ultimately, what are digital badges? And then what use are they to you and your organisation, if at all? So those are some of the key points or questions I would ask you to consider. And finally, any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, just pop your questions up there now. They're not got a lot of time left, but one of the questions was, can they, do they expire? So could it show up as expired?
Sorry, Emma. For some reason, although the headset wasn't working for speaking, when you were talking there, it was in the volume was coming out there. Do you mind saying that again if there was a question? Sorry.
Can the badges show up as expired?
Yeah,
For
the
example,
badges would come up as expired, so you can put your expiration date, and the badges are then expired. So, yeah.
And can you add them later? So if it's already been issued that you had your passport 2 years ago, can you add it on later?
No, so I think that was the question that Susan had mentioned, that I alluded to. So once a badge has been issued, you can't then go back in and add additional evidence on top of it. So you would then two options. You would either create a new badge for do the update or the upskill, etc., and then that would be awarded, or you would do it as once that badge is expired, the person has to re-earn the badge, and they would then submit their new evidence on top of that. So that's two options that you could use to get round about that. Just looking at the chat, so Brenda's saying they've been using digital badges for students to replace placements. There's no placements were allowed during COVID. It's really interesting, Brenda. So how are the badges used to replace the placements then? That'd be useful to know more about that.
I think everyone's away to claim their badge, Lee. So I think everyone's questions. They're too busy claiming their badge. Thank you. Yeah, but you said you'll be here for a little bit of time, so if there's any questions, just pop them in, or any comments, just get them into chat. So thank you very much, Lee. That was brilliant. Yeah, really.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry, I'm over time, folks.
No, you're all right. That's what we expect normally. Yesterday was a very rare occurrence, so yeah, this is normal. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Yesterday we were speaking about missing our exhibitors, and Penny has already let you know that she saw in the programme about girls when